Hello and welcome back to GISC 125, Mapping and Spatial Thinking. Today we're going to look into life expectancy and healthography. So we all have our own geographies as well as our biographies. Our health and our geographies are inextricably linked. Where you live affects your risk of disease or ill health. So in short, healthography is where health and geography intertwine. So to better understand this link, let's start by understanding a little bit more about what life expectancy is. So the term life expectancy refers to the number of years a person can expect to live. By definition, life expectancy is based on an estimate of the average age that members of a particular population group will be when they die. In 1950, life expectancy in the U.S. was 68.21 years. In comparison, in South Sudan, life expectancy was only 26.72 years. That's a difference of 41 years. Today, life expectancy has increased across all countries. In 2015, the life expectancy in the U.S. was 79.24 years, and in South Sudan, life expectancy was 56.32 years. So that's a difference of 23 years. So Sudan has doubled their life expectancy in 65 years. So what factors or variables do you suspect might be driving this increase? In places like sub-Saharan Africa, it's probably due to medications for HIV and AIDS, bed nets for malaria, access to clean water, better sanitation, education and healthcare, immunization, and women's rights. In the United States, it's largely due to advances in medical treatment, for example, in cardiovascular disease. So the term lifespan is familiar to most of us. The world has relatively new frequent companion called health span. So a person's health span is the length of time that a person is healthy, not just alive. So life expectancy is greatly influenced by advances in medicine and the public health system, while the health span is mostly affected by lifestyle practices, in particular the quality of diet, physical activity, and avoiding alcohol, tobacco, which are part of the social determinants of health. For example, in the United States, the average number of years with a disability or disease is 11.16. In the United States and other developing nations, this is a result in large part, it's due to the social determinants of health: poverty, lack of physical activity, food choices, for example, like highly processed foods, sugars, and lack of social connection, and so forth. So from this map, we can see number of years living with a disability is kind of high in the United States and other parts of Europe. Maybe not so much in sub-Saharan Africa, and we can kind of think about why that might be the case. A county by county survey of the United States, life expectancy reports an 18-year gap between the lowest and the highest. And we'll get into the kind of these correlates within the gap in a minute, but we can kind of look here. So the good news is that nearly all counties registered gains in life expectancy between 1980 and 2014, which is the year of this map. The bad news is that the high versus low gap has widened over the last 34 years, and that's 13 counties registered declines in life expectancy span. So low life expectancy counties were concentrated in Kentucky, West Virginia, Alabama, and several states along the Mississippi River. So what do you think correlates? Why do these counties have some of the lower life expectancy? Maybe it has to do with smoking, types of employment, income, etc. So now let's turn our attention to healthography. And it has been said that your zip code may be the more important for your health than your genetic code. This is because factors known as the social determinants of health can greatly influence your chances of becoming sick and dying early. Your address reflects the daily living conditions that can create or limit your opportunities to be healthy. So, amazing! Your own neighborhood has the potential to significantly increase, or I should say, influence your health. This is essentially what health geography is. It's the notion that our neighborhoods and residential environments can greatly impact our health and well-being. So how can a neighborhood conditions shape our health? It's not difficult to imagine how conditions in a neighborhood could affect health. For example, poorer neighborhoods generally have more crime, pollution, fast food restaurants, and ads promoting tobacco and alcohol use, and they often lack safe places to play and exercise. Residents of high poverty neighborhoods are more likely to live in substandard housing that can expose children to a multitude of health hazards, including lead poisoning and asthma. Perhaps less obvious, but equally important, is the fact that children living in poor neighborhoods are more likely to attend underperforming schools, have fewer job opportunities, which can limit social mobility, and then therefore health across generations. So in this poverty map of Boise, there are three darkest areas have the poverty rates between 34 and 39%. So we can see those in the darker blue. So as you can see, poverty varies across Boise. So here is a map of Los Angeles in California. And there are some areas where poverty rates exceed 80%. But just a short walk away is only 8% poverty. So do you suspect those people living in areas where the poverty rate is so high have the same health outcomes as those living in significantly lower poverty areas? Do you think they will live as long? So these are all interesting questions that geographers and public health and epidemiologists think about. So by just looking at this map, we can greatly see how health and health outcomes vary greatly across the city of LA. Again, we talked previously about the scale of our analysis. So we could look at all of LA County, or we can be looking at these neighborhoods. And so when you're doing your research, your analysis, you'd be certainly targeting different neighborhoods for interventions. So up to this point, we've discussed social determinants of health, life expectancy, and poverty. So let's try and tie this further together with life expectancy in Spokane, Washington neighborhoods. From this map, we can see that life expectancy varies greatly from a high of 84 in Southgate to as low as 66 in Riverside. And that's a difference of 18 years just in Spokane, Washington. So in other words, if you're born and live in Riverside, you on average will live 66 years, but just cross the street to West Central and you'll live an average of 74 years. So where you live matters big time.